So as we, kind of mentioned, right, like there is very much part of like this discussion is about related to disparities in human force, right? And so we know that at least like part of this reason, right, is given how police are deployed, so where they spend the most time, and it's a function of where there is more contact as well. The other part to consider with this, right, is that if we think about the context, like a neighborhood context, right, there's also going to be this increase of people who have increase in alcoholism or increase in drug use. And there's also this increase in mental health concerns that are related to this population, right? Now, how do each of these, relate to use of force from like police use, right? So if we think about this from like an officer perspective, right? If we think about their training, what happens, thinking about the context of who they interact with and so on, right? The police are more likely, to use force, right? They tend to be more suspicious, right? They're suspicious. They're also cynical, meaning that they do not trust the actions or behaviors of other people, right? And it's basically what ends up happening, right? Is that they have like this learned threat response where they are looking for suspicious behavior and they are interpreting it as a threat, right? So something that, could pose a danger to them, right? And so we think about their training, right? A lot of their physical contact training, right, is about protecting themselves as well as other people, right? So from one aspect, right, like, a lot of their force, right, is in this like defensive, reactive kind of mindset, right? They're responding to situation characteristics as they change over time, right? And so, if we are understanding like disparities, right, it's we have to consider all these other factors, right? They're like played into it, right? And how they match across conditions, right? Because it is like a key part of understanding like why force is used in certain things, right? Without understanding that context, we really, don't know like, like how many of these are like disparate or not, right? Yeah, now we do know that because of where police are located, right, we do see disparity in force rates, right? But we also know that all these other factors condition and they shape the way that a police officer, handles their business or situations, right? Now, it's still rare to use force, but it's also, kind of an important issue. Interestingly enough, right, if we think about, this kind of police kind of response kind of thing, there's some research that is currently being done, right? That's looking at fear responses of people. And if you think about like how eyes are shifty, how people tense up, how they may look the other way or they try to avoid eye contact, right? To police officer, right? Rather than, interpreting this as fear, right? They become suspicious and might think of, like a danger kind of threat, right? Rather than thinking, oh, that someone's afraid, I should try to calm them, right? They turn to like it's a danger kind of thing. Just something like to kind of keep in mind, right? It's actually a project I'm working on with someone where we're looking at things like that, but TBD on that. The point of this, right, is that any time that there's a lot of like stuff in media and stuff that talks about disparities and alleges that the police are racist, right? And in the sense that we have like there is systemic racism in society and how police are being used to control populations, right? And how they're being deployed, right? And you can see that there are these disparities, and it's easy to understand how like one can say like the police are racist, right? And how these disparities are ongoing and nothing's done to correct them, right? But we also know that all these factors help contribute and at least partially mitigate, right? That doesn't excuse disparities in use of force, and that doesn't permit them. That's not what I'm saying. But it does help to add, some context, right? Now, the things that, probably get, kind of, again going right is when it's, unlawful or impermissible use of force. Usually, like if you think back to like crime in society, right? You think about criminal offenders. We know that a small portion create most problems. And this is also true, for police officers as well, where a small portion are responsible for the vast majority of misconduct and complaints and illegal use of force, right? But a lot of times, like if you think about the stuff that's used to maybe try to like regulate police use of force, you know, some stuff, right, is that, when it comes down to, right, there has to be, better investigation of use of force incidents. Because without, like the fear that maybe like if you are up to no good that you'll be caught, there's no one's really going to check on it, right? Interesting though, one of the most like powerful things that's used in controlling use of force, right, is required reporting of use of force events, right? Because it's like one more source of paperwork. But if you require people to report it, each and every instance of use of force, right, the use of it goes down actually like quite a bit, right, relative to other police agencies, right? Really, like if we're interested in like stopping use of force, or maybe having people just like limit the disproportionate or unlawful use of force, right? Maybe we should just like, report it more. But the thing that's kind of interesting is that, new laws, right, don't do much. With respect to like actually outlining it, right? Because, ultimately at the end of the day, like force is like a low base rate, meaning it's an extremely infrequent event. It's pretty hard to control the behavior of extremely unlikely events, right? So it's hard to say like something's going to be effective or not because those laws ultimately don't do that much. Ugh. Excuse me. So if we think about like in that kind of context, right? Those are probably the things, we probably want to require the reporting, right? We want to mandate the review of incidents, right? And we also just need to like probably give, better technique sets and training and reduce like the likelihood of using force by giving more options available, right? And teaching a different way to handle encounters, right? So that officers are less likely to use that. Those are probably going to be the most evidence-based ways to maybe like decrease use of force and ultimately decrease disparities in the use of force.